Hello, my name's Ash, and today we're taking a look at a demo of a game called Forensics Crime Scene Detective. The game puts you into a role of a forensic specialist where you examine crime scenes, collect evidence, analyse the evidence, and solve the crime. The demo has quite a bit to offer in regards to tutorials and some basic cases. So you do the tutorial and then you use what you've learned in an actual case. You can learn about taking photos of evidence, getting data from phones or laptops, pulling up fingerprints, and mapping out trajectories of bullets. The game has potential. It's quite good, it's fun to play, but, and there is a but, at the moment there's a few things holding it back. And that is what we're going to be covering in this video. Mechanically, there are a few issues with the game that I think it would make it a lot more enjoyable to play if they were addressed. So the first of these is the ability to only carry one item at a time. So at the moment, for example, you have to mark a piece of evidence and then you take a photo of it. You then have to pick up the evidence. However, to do this, you first have to walk to the case, which is by the entrance of the crime scene, pick up your evidence markers, go back to the evidence, place your marker down next to it, go back to the case, put your evidence markers away, then you pick up the camera, go back to the evidence and the marker, take a photo of them. You can then pick up the evidence, but you need to take the camera back to the case before you can pick any other piece of equipment up. Now, I've read that developers have stated that in a real forensic situation, it can be done this way as to take great care not to impact the crime scene. However, this is a video game. It's not pure simulation. So I think it just kills the fun of the game. In this instance, the developers could make everyone happy. They could add the ability to carry multiple items and have a simple option in the settings that allows you to turn it off and still then only be able to carry one item. Then people who want a true realistic approach can still have that going forward. And I think if this isn't addressed for the release, it's going to end up with a fair few negative reviews and refunds. So I think this is something that they really need to look at, because it is very time consuming having to go backwards and forwards just to pick up and drop off items. It's already quite bad in the small buildings that you're doing the crime scenes in at the moment. I'm sure there are going to be much bigger maps in the full release of the game or in the future, and it would just be, it'd be even worse having to walk even more distance to do that. The second big issue that I have with the game is how you select evidence when analysing it. So at the moment you have to walk up to the machine you're going to use, whatever bit of analysing you're going to do. You have to tap the E key, you select the evidence you are going to use and then close that screen. You then hold down the E key to enter the interface of whatever analyzer you're using, and then the evidence becomes available. And it just feels clunky. It doesn't flow properly. So I think what should happen is the player should simply select the machine they're going to use, hit a button there that says something along the lines of select or insert evidence, and then they pick the evidence that they're adding, click OK, and they're done. I think this would be a much better approach. Another issue I have is with some of the mechanics of the minigames. So when you do an analysis, you effectively have a different minigame depending on what you're analysing. So for example, fingerprints. What you're meant to do is recognise pattern types in each section of the fingerprint. And as you can see, I'm attempting to do that here, but I don't understand how it works at all. I'm trying to look for the patterns represented by the boxes on the right, and this lowers and raises the percentage of how much of a match you have. I've never had more than around a 70% match, and this percentage seems to alter depending on if you have certain boxes ticked for certain squares, and it just doesn't make much sense to me. So in the end, I just matched the fingerprints visually. You can clearly see here that the two fingerprints here match side by side, but I assume this gets a bit harder if you have partial prints and they're not so obvious. So really it needs looking at, or there needs to be some more in-depth tutorial on it to make people understand how this works. Another example of this is the bullet analysis. So the first time I did this in the tutorial, it matched up perfectly. As you can see here, the two fragments match up fine. But the idea is that you rotate the dials on the side. So you rotate the projectile and the light until both the top and bottom parts match up. The second time I did it, however, I knew the bullet should have matched because when I finished the case, it confirmed it. But I could not get it to line up. I couldn't get it to look the same. And again, this feels like I'm missing something, and there's not really anything in the game that explains exactly how this works. It just gives you a brief overview before you use the machine for the first time. Another issue with this was when I was trying to take a chip out of a phone. So you have to heat it up. If you heat it up too much, then you can destroy the chip, and I did do that the once. But if you heat it up to what seems to be like the level that it needs to be, the chip doesn't always release. And after a lot of attempts and keep going, doing the same thing, keep heating it up, keep trying to keep it all level, then eventually it releases. So I don't know if it's just a case you've got to keep it at that level for a period of time. But again, this needs to be a little bit more clear because it's not obvious how it works. I think just a bit more of a detailed explanation all round with these systems would just improve the player experience. It only needs to be as part of the tutorials. Once the player knows how it works, it's fine. But if they're going to struggle that much in just getting the basic analysis to work, then I don't think it's going to do very well for the player base. I think someone will quite happily drop the game rather than sit there trying to figure out why something isn't working that appears like it should. There's a couple of other improvements I would like to see. I had an issue on the fingerprints tutorial where I'd missed a fingerprint completely. And when first playing, I didn't have any idea how many there were or if the game was going to tell me if there was any more. Sometimes you get emails when you submit evidence saying that you've got some of them. But I think the tutorials should give an easy to see guide on how many fingerprints there are. So it literally should just say there are 5 fingerprints to find in this this tutorial. So make sure that you've got them all, and then for it to let you know that in the real scenarios you're going to look for yourself and you might miss them. But when you're learning and when you're first doing it, I think that just having that knowledge would allow you to focus more on the actual act of trying to find them and understanding where they can be, because they can be on the floors, on the walls, cabinets and so on. I do like that the game doesn't hold your hand in the regard that it tells you where everything is and everything you've got to do and how many things you've got to find, and it is left to yourself, so it is a proper detective game. But when teaching the player in those tutorial elements, I think a little bit more hand-holding is needed across the board. Other than that, if these things can get fixed up and tidied up a bit, just to give that player a bit of a better experience, I think that this is going to be a good game and it'll be well worth picking up when it's released.